Hi, today, I am going to explain a South African German thriller film called The Lost Future. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The premise of the movie is set in a post-apocalyptic world where modern civilization has collapsed, and humans have reverted back to the Stone Ages. Many years ago, a deadly disease broke out and started turning humans into cold-hearted mutants. Now, this disease can also be spread through bites, and since the mutants are always hungry for meat, 99% of the human population has been wiped out, leaving them on the verge of extinction. In the first scene, we are shown one of the remaining tribes, which has taken refuge inside the Grey Rock National Park. The tribe is headed by a wise but religious man named Uri. He believes that everything is happening as per God's will, so they shouldn't revolt against it. His son, Savin, is a ferocious hunter, who is respected and envied by everyone. The tribe mostly relies on leaves and berries, but occasionally, they also feast on small rodents. For safety reasons, they have a designated hunting area. Nobody has ventured out of it in years. But one day, while out hunting with the other villagers, Savin notices an animal on the other side. So, for the sake of fresh meat, he convinces his chief father to let him cross the designated line. Later, as Savin and the others venture deep into the forest, they stumble upon Caleb, a skilled but underappreciated hunter. All of a sudden, they hear an animal's roar coming from nearby, and Uri assigns his son the responsibility to lead the attack, much to Caleb's dismay. Shortly after, the animal reveals itself. To everyone's horror, it is a mutilated sloth that has grown to become the size of an elephant. The challenge is a difficult one, but with Savin's lead, the tribe attacks the sloth and eventually takes it down. However, before they can celebrate, one of the tribesmen comes running, screaming in pain. It turns out that he has been bitten by a mutant and is slowly and painfully turning into one himself. The man pleads with Savin to put him out of his misery. When the boy hesitates to comply, his father steps up and kills the tribesman with a sharp spear. Meanwhile, in the distance, a man named Amal is seen keeping an eye on them. Afterwards, the tribe returns to the village with their hunt. There, we are introduced to Savin's hot girlfriend Darrell, who, despite living in the Stone Age, has a spectacularly good skin routine. Caleb keeps staring at her, and it becomes clear that he has a thing for Darrell. His sister, Miru, is aware about this, and she often teases him for punching above his weight. Later, Uri raises concern about the mutants slowly closing in on their hideout and suggests moving their settlement elsewhere. Unfortunately, the tribe elders reject the idea, as they have lived in the current settlement for a really long time. They appear to be even more religious than Uri, and believe that they should leave their fate into the hands of God. However, Caleb, who has been ignored and shunned all his life, objects to the decision. He says that the tribe should choose their own fate and go looking for other survivors, just like his late father, Jarrett, did. It is then revealed that Jarrett was an optimist, who believed there were other survivors out there. He worked tirelessly, day and night to find them, but in the process, he got himself killed. Dejected, Caleb approaches his sister for advice, but when she too doubts him, he decides to leave the village and go looking for other survivors. However, before he could get far, he encounters a group of mutants heading towards the hideout. They have somehow found the settlement and are looking to kill all the villagers for food. Alarmed, Caleb changes his direction and returns to help his tribe. In the next scene, the mutants eventually reach the hideout and start wreaking havoc. They attack the villagers with full force, killing many of them in the process, including Chief Uri. After realizing that they are outnumbered, the village elders order the surviving tribesmen to seek shelter inside a cave. Miru and the others manage to enter and block the entrance with heavy logs to keep the mutants out. However, Savin, Caleb and Darrell are locked outside, completely exposed to the deadly beasts. The three then hide behind a large rock and watch the mutants trying to find a way to enter the cave. Savin suggests attacking the creatures from behind, but Caleb and Darrell believe that it's a bad idea. So, the three leave the settlement and venture deep into the woods to find help. After a while, when they stop to drink water from a river, Caleb brings out a book that his father had given him as a gift. The book is from the primitive world, i.e., the world before human civilization collapsed. Caleb reveals that he and Miru can read because their father had given them lessons a long time ago. This makes them the only literate people in the entire forest. As the three are engrossed in their conversation, suddenly, they come under attack from a mutant. To Savin's horror, it is revealed to be his father, Uri, who has been taken over by the infection. Savin is left paralyzed and he refuses to attack his father. Fortunately, the mysterious man from earlier, Amal, appears and takes Uri down. He then comforts Savin and reminds him that the mutant wasn't his father. Afterwards, Amal checks the trio's noses to look for any bleeding. He explains that apart from mutant bites, the disease also spreads through air. The only difference is that through a bite, the transformation process is much quicker, while through air infection, it takes some time before the disease shows its first symptom. Following this, Amal shockingly reveals that he is immune to the infection thanks to a cure, a yellow powder that is extremely difficult to obtain. He then takes them back home, which is on the other side of a river. It turns out the mutants don't like water and they can't swim. This is why Amal has been living peacefully all these years. At his home, the trio is introduced to his son and wife. The latter is upset with her husband for bringing home infected humans, but he feels it is worth the risk as Caleb knows how to read. Later during lunch, Amal reveals how the disease first broke out. It turns out in the past, several scientists successfully brought extinct animals back to life. However, this also brought a disease that they couldn't control. Amal knows about this because of his close relationship with Jarrett, Caleb's father. After the world descended into chaos, Jarrett, using his ability to read, conducted an extensive research to find a cure for the disease. He was eventually successful, but before he could return to the village with the yellow powder, he was killed by Gagan, a ruthless leader of another tribe. Gagan then stole the cure along with its formula and hid it somewhere inside his city. Now, Amal wants Caleb to decipher the formula and use it to create more yellow powder and save humanity. He reveals that although the mutants cannot be reverted back to humans, the ones who have just been infected can be cured. Caleb and his group immediately agree to help, and so they begin their journey towards Gagan's city. Elsewhere, at the hideout, the mutants are attempting to break down the entrance to the cave. The elders begin to accept their fate, but Miru and two hunters, Remy and Yomak, refuse to give up. They start looking for an alternate exit and come across a small flooded tunnel with light on the other side. Only Miru is small enough to fit through it, so she decides to go alone. However, the attempt is unsuccessful and Miru returns with a bunch of leeches stuck on her body. Remy and Yomak quickly help her remove them, and shortly after, Miru again tries to cross the gap. This time, using every ounce of her strength, she succeeds in reaching the other side. Meanwhile, the other villagers inside the cave start to show signs of infection as their noses begin to bleed. Fearing for their lives, the three escape through the tunnel together after Miru enlarges the opening. On the other end of the tunnel, they find a hole that goes up and leads them outside the cave. Suddenly, Yomak's nose begins to bleed, so they all rush to climb the hole in an attempt to escape. To their horror, the mutants appear there as well. The three quickly retreat, but in the process, Yomak falls down and breaks his leg. Miru and Remy try to help him up, but he refuses, saying that he will only slow them down. So, with a heavy heart, he orders the other two to escape, while he sacrifices himself to slow the mutants down. Shortly after, the mutants storm the place and kill Yomak, but as they proceed to follow the other two, they are held back by the water. On the other side, everyone's condition has worsened and they are on the verge of turning into mutants. Before one of the tribesmen completely transforms, Miru uses her spear and kills him. Elsewhere, on the way to Gagan's city, Amal, Caleb, Darrell and Savin stop near a hill to light a signal fire atop an old monolith. Amal hopes to call a nearby friendly tribe, called the Brotherhood, to their aid. Unfortunately, while he is up on the monolith, some mutants approach the group below, making them flee the scene in fear. After a while, Amal falls down and comes under attack by the mutants. He is almost finished off, but fortunately, the Brotherhood tribe notices his signal and rescues him. Amal then reveals about Caleb and his potential, convincing the Brotherhood to help him in his mission. On the other hand, Savin and his friends leave for the city in search of the yellow powder. Time is running out as Darrell also starts to bleed from her nose, revealing that she has been infected. After a while, they eventually come across the city. It is a dilapidated place where people are living under a strict despotism. There, the trio approaches a man and inquires about the yellow powder, but he panics and runs away. Determined to find the powder, Savin runs after the man, but the latter manages to escape. Later, when he returns, he sees his friends being taken away by Gagan's men, much to his dismay. Shortly after, Caleb and Darrell finally come face to face with Gagan and his daughter, Giselle. By this time, Darrell's condition has rapidly deteriorated, so Caleb demands the powder that was stolen from his father. He tells Gagan that since he can read, he can manufacture more powder in the future. This impresses Gagan a bit, but he refuses to share the cure. However, he agrees to allow Caleb to visit Jarrett's library and research the formula. After Gagan leaves, Savin sneaks into his house, holds Giselle hostage and demands her to take him to the powder. At first, she refuses, but when Savin reveals that her cruel father stole the powder from them, she becomes sympathetic towards their cause and agrees. Giselle then leads Savin to a secret safe, claiming that it contains the powder. She is sure about it, as her dad claims to inhale a small amount every week. However, upon further inspection, Savin deduces that the safe doesn't contain the powder as it hasn't been opened in ages. In the library, Caleb finds his father's notes on how to prepare the yellow powder. Unfortunately, the writings are so complex that it will take him weeks to decipher it. At the same time, his nose also starts to bleed. He pleads for some powder so that he can work on the cure, but Gagan refuses. Suddenly, Giselle arrives and informs him that an intruder has got hold of the powder. Panicking, Gagan rushes to inspect, and he inadvertently reveals the actual location of the powder. Just then, Savin ambushes him from behind and knocks him out. After this, he inhales a small amount of the powder, curing him of the disease. In the next scene, Savin and Giselle rush to Darrell and rescue her in the nick of time. They then make their way into the library and use some of the powder to save Caleb. Afterwards, the trio escapes while Giselle stays back. They head straight towards their hideout. On their way, they come across a perilous rope bridge. The trio slowly walks through it, but before they can get to the other side, Gagan and his men suddenly arrive and start attacking them. Sadly, Savin decides to sacrifice his life, as he believes that Caleb is humanity's last home. He bravely fights the enemies for a while, but soon, he is overpowered and killed. Meanwhile, Darrell and Caleb escape into the woods, where they reunite with Amal. After reaching the village, the Brotherhood takes on the mutants while Darrell administers the cure to Miru and other villagers, saving them in the nick of time. Surprisingly, Gagan has still not given up on his powder. He follows the group back to their hideout and tries to shoot Caleb with a crossbow, but Amal dives in front of him, taking the shot. Furious, Caleb hurls a battle axe at Gagan, finally killing him. In the aftermath of the devastation, Amal somehow survives, and the remaining villagers slowly rise up to their feet. They are now immune to the deadly disease that has been plaguing the earth since decades. The movie ends with Miru teaching the tribe's children how to read while Caleb says goodbye to Amal and Darrell before setting off for the city to continue his father's work.